Hi, I'm Lily Polito, member of the Broadcast Journalism and AP Government classes at Melrose High School. Welcome to our School Committee Candidate Program. Each candidate will be asked 5 questions curated by our AP Government classes. These questions were provided in advance. They will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question, as well as make an opening and closing statement. The candidates' responses will be randomized within each section during the final program. The first section is an opportunity for an opening statement from each candidate.
My name is Melissa Holleran. I am running for school committee, and I have lived in Melrose since 2016 with my husband, and we have 2 children that are in the Roosevelt School in 3rd grade. They're twins, and I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up in a family that valued participation in the community and public schools. From that point, I moved on to Massachusetts to go to college. I went to Stonehill College where I got my BA in psychology, and then I moved to Simmons College where I received my master's in social work and currently hold my LCSW. In my professional life, I've been working for a nonprofit high school exchange company, and I've worked in student services. I've supported students, I've counseled students, I've worked in residential student programming, I've worked on event planning and management, and I am currently working on program operations. I am looking forward to the opportunity to share my experience and my knowledge with the community and with potentially on the school committee, and look forward to meeting people during this time and really getting out into the community a bit more as I volunteered with the PTO, coordinating room representatives and in the library, and I see the school committee as doing this on a larger scale.
Thank you for having me. I am Sherry Leo, and I'm running for school committee because this is a critical moment in our city and our schools. I know you've felt the effects of our budget crisis. There have been bigger classes, there have been increases in fees for sports and theater, and we've had to lay off a lot of teachers. So I'm the parent of a 7th and 9th grader, and so I am in it with you. I am seeing all the things that you are seeing, and you deserve better, and we need to make those changes now so that we can set the groundwork for what's coming next. Specifically, when I think about these changes, I think about how the district had to lay off more than 30 teachers, and many of those were teachers who were newly hired last year for our middle school. At that time, I had a 6th grader and an 8th grader, and they had a bunch of those teachers who brought energy and expertise and experience from other places. One of those teachers, the 8th grade English teacher, was among the best teachers I've ever seen in my entire career in and around schools. He was so enthusiastic. He built relationships with students, and he saw the brilliance in every individual in his class, and now he is gone. And he has been hired by another district that invests in their students and teachers. Now, Melrose has the opportunity to do that too. We're not going to talk about how we got here, but we can chart a path forward together, and that's what I'm excited to do as a school committee member. My background is in leadership. In schools and districts and nonprofits. I was a teacher, I've hired teachers, I've hired principals and school leaders, and I've planned budgets, and I think we're going to need all of those skills in the coming months and years as we set a path for Melrose and hire a new superintendent. So thank you.
My name is Kamari Clark, and I am a proud member of 3 Melrose school students, one who has graduated, one currently in high school, and another one in the 3rd grade. I have lived in this town for over 22 years, started my family here and raised my family here. I grew up in a military family, so I moved around a lot before I welcomed Melrose as my home. And there's a lot of opportunities in the military to meet new communities, meet new people, and all of that. So it was a great way to grow up and learn how to cultivate relationships, learn about different ideas, and get involved into service. My dad was in the military for 21 years, retired as a lieutenant colonel, and my mother came here from Puerto Rico and met my dad in college. So with their leadership and focus on education and service, now was the time to start thinking about what could I do to help my own community. The main driver that led me to run for school committee is the last 4 years we've had 4 different superintendents. That does not cultivate a strong culture, a strong direction, and it kind of makes things a little uncertain. Along with other budget issues and all the things going on, I felt that it was time for me to step up and to look into how to support the students, the community, and the schools. So with that said, the 3 things that I stay focused on are stability, looking for strong leadership, sustainability, making sure any and all decisions are thoughtful and thought about for the next multiple years, and the last is through listening, leadership through listening, so cultivating voices. So that's really what my goal and my premise is, that I really want to be out there to be a representative of the community. I have my own ideas, but I need the decisions to be informed by as many people as possible.
Thank you, Lily. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for putting this together for us. So I'm Jennifer Rozzi Thomas. This is my 8th year on the school committee. The reason why I'm running for re-election is because my mom always said, leave a place better than you found it. And after the last 2 budget cycles, I can honestly say that we've put the schools in a worse position, having to lay off 17 teachers last year and 30 educators this year. The high school and the middle school now have class sizes in the 30s, many classes in the 30s. And that's just not acceptable to me. And I really believe in public education, and it's the foundation of democracy, and we need to protect it, and we need to improve the schools in Melrose by fully funding them. That's why I'm running for re-election, because I want to see what happens with this override. Once it passes, hopefully 1A will pass, and we'll be in much better shape to rebuild the schools.
Question 1. If the override does not pass, what steps will you take to ensure that our schools still have the necessary resources to function? If the override is successful, what are your budget priorities?
If the override doesn't pass, I think we have to do a bunch of different things. This past year, I did not vote for the budget. I voted no against it because I wanted to put more pressure on the city council to give the public schools more funding. The city council and the mayor are in a tough position because the money can only go so far. But I would say that we need to do things like close Memorial Hall, consider that, close the new library, consider that, close DPW on the weekends. And we've already made cuts on the city side as well as the school side, but I would really fight hard to maintain our resources. We need more, not less, and we need to get people's attention. And so I would really focus on how can we maintain the resources that we have. It may come to we have to close an elementary school because these cuts this year have affected the middle school and the high school, not so much the elementary schools. So I hope that won't happen. If the override is successful, the budget priorities that I would have are to lower the class sizes in the high school and the middle school, and also restore the team model in the middle school. Besides that, I would like for all of our schools to be very transparent about the weaknesses and their strengths, and follow school improvement plans very closely with data to inform how we're doing at every school building level. So no one slips through the cracks.
To be really transparent, I am for the override and have volunteered a little bit to spread the word about the override and answer questions about the override, and hope to continue to do so until Election Day. If the override doesn't pass, we're going to have a lot of difficult decisions to make, not just within our school system, but within our community and our city services. Everybody's going to feel the effects of this. I think that we will need the school committee, the mayor, and the city council to work together to figure out our prioritizations and what the city needs, and I think schools are at the top of that. If the override does pass, we're still going to have a lot of hard work and difficult decisions to make, depending on what level of the budget passes. We're going to have to decide what we can prioritize in the school to bring back into the school budget, and things that we can consider are teacher positions, providing resources and the tools that administrators and educators need to do their jobs, and then also what services we can bring back to Melrose so students are getting their needs met here in Melrose Public Schools.
So when it comes to the override passing or not passing, again, I think the foundation for either response, if it does or doesn't, is pretty much the same. We really need to be strong stewards of the budget that we are given, and we really need to think thoughtfully and hard about all of the money that our hardworking residents have given to us and given to us to spend for the course of our children. When I'm thinking about if it does not pass, there may be some additional things that we can consider looking at. We have to examine how we're spending the current money, where are those gaps, what do we need to kind of figure out, and then also what are opportunities with state representatives, how can we reach out to the government and advocate for funding, looking at grant opportunities, as well as maybe even generating income. What are some ideas? I know our community has a ton of ideas that we can consider. If it does pass, then again, it's the same. We need to be stewards for the money that we're given. Any of the decisions that we make, if it's adding back teachers or doing whatever that is recommended by our leadership, we really need to think, how does that impact our budget today, as well as how does it impact the budget in years to come? Some of this money that we're advocating to spend this year may cycle through and grow and grow and grow, and we want to be mindful that we are spending the money in the best way possible. It's kind of like the mindset of we need to do the most with the least and kind of stay in that focus. What I feel would be most unfortunate in either scenario, if it's passed or not passed, is to turn around and ask the citizens again for an override in the next couple years. We really need to make sure we're doing what we can with what we have.
So I want to start by saying I sincerely hope the override does pass. And I am doing everything in my power, along with others in our community, to see that it does. But we'll tackle the question in the order that you asked it. And so start with what happens if the override doesn't pass. So I think we know all of our options will be bad ones. We will have to make hard decisions, and none of them will be good. But we will still have to get up the day after the election. You will have to go to school. I will have to go to work, and we'll need to start charting a path forward. So if we find ourselves in that situation, I would want to immediately work with others at the city and district level to continue advocating for funds at the state level, because there's still a piece of that budget that comes from the state and that formula that isn't working quite right for districts like Melrose, like ours. I would also continue building partnerships in the community. Volunteers are incredibly important to our schools. They can never replace, nor should they ever replace, our incredible educators and adequate funding. But building partnerships creates the investment from others outside the schools in what is possible and what we're doing here to allow us to continue working toward long-term financial investment. But if the override does pass, I do think we have some better opportunities, but we still have some difficult trade-offs and decisions to make. My priority, first and foremost, would be to hear from all of you, students, teachers, families, about what is most important. I think class size is one thing we'll need to tackle, but I'm one person and I will be representing everyone in the city. So we'll have to talk about it. But I do know there will be trade-offs, because there will never be enough money to fully fund all of the priorities that each of us holds. And so we'll need to balance short and long-term needs so that we are able to invest in our schools. But I'm up for the challenge.
Question 2. What are the most important issues beyond funding levels that you feel need addressing in the school system?
So when I think about this, I don't have all the answers, right? I am a parent. I have been involved in the school system for 15 years and have another 9 to go. So there's a lot that is important. But when I think of myself as a school committee representative, it is taking some ideas that I have and what my thinking is and cultivating all the other opinions that are out there. So going back to those cores, stability, obviously priority number one is to get a superintendent into the position and truly, honestly support those efforts of the superintendent. Believe in that mission, make sure we're hiring the right one that we can support and can someone that can really cultivate a great culture within our community. Sustainability, again, asking each time, what are we spending this money on, and how is it shaping up? What is it looking like? And really, the missed opportunity that I've seen is really voices. We really need to cultivate listening and finding. We have a lot of people who are more than willing to step up and share their opinions. There are people who are vocal and who are very strong and proud. But even today, I was walking around and talking with people, and there were people like, well, I don't have any kids. What do I have to say about what's happening in the school committee? The truth is, you have a lot to say. You have grandchildren that may be in the school system. You raised your family here. You never had your family here. But we need to hear your voices as well, because we are a representative of our community, not of ourselves. And that's the part that really needs to be cultivated and worked on.
So I know we've already tackled funding, which is the most important. But in addition to that, my first priority is building a culture of trust. And that starts with hiring a new superintendent. We've had a number of different superintendents over the past several years, and we need to find a superintendent who knows Melrose and our needs, is committed to building for the long term, and shares our values. I have hired many senior leaders in my career, and I am excited to build a hiring process that is transparent and invites in all stakeholder voices, and that's the first step in building trust. And then that will also set up our superintendent for success. In addition, building trust with the community means lifting up and celebrating what's going well in Melrose Public Schools. I think there is a negative narrative for folks who are not willing to support our schools at the level that they need. And there are so many incredible things happening right now. I think we can showcase all the extracurriculars as well as the academic achievements, from AP classes to externships, from the track team to the robotics to all of the things that are happening here. And when we celebrate what's working, we create pride in our community and in our schools. And then my second priority is to support the needs of every student, so every student feels welcome, valued, and safe, especially those who are most vulnerable. And one way that we'll do that is by fully investing in and supporting the needs of our students with disabilities so they can fully access the curriculum. And that is incredibly important, because when you support the most vulnerable students, and students with disabilities specifically, it has positive effects for everyone. It gives all students the opportunity to access the curriculum and celebrates the brilliance of every student here at Melrose Public Schools.
So this is a great question. I will provide my ideas, but I also want to be really clear that my goal, if I get elected to the school committee, is to hear from students, parents, educators, administration, to hear what they think is working, what's not working, taking those ideas and really listening to the community. I'm here, my goal will be to help and to listen. And I will offer my ideas, but also I want to be clear that I'm eager to learn, grow, and adapt to what's needed at the time that we're meeting, and I see things changing through the 4-year term on school committee. So improvement, one of my ideas is improvement on teacher retention. We've had a lot of layoffs, and with all of these layoffs, it's also led to teachers moving to other school districts who weren't laid off, and that impacts the students and impacts the consistency and stability. So I'd love to focus on teacher retention so that they feel valued, and them feeling valued I see as will translate into the school, or into the classroom for the students to feel those effects as well. Also, I think you all in high school have seen the effects of these layoffs, and there have been larger class sizes. And while I don't think it's impossible to learn with larger class sizes, I do think that, we do know that the research shows that smaller classes are more conducive to a better learning environment. It allows students to ask more questions and for teachers to meet students' needs on a more specialized basis. So love to see what we can do with class sizes as well.
So in the subcategories is kind of what it's titled. So kids who are in special ed, kids who are minorities, kids of color in particular, are there students in our schools that are doing the least well. And so we need to keep funding our special ed programs so they are very, very strong, so we don't have to send kids out to outplacements. We have to do literacy programs that are phonics based, which we're starting to get back to, which is really important. And what was the last piece of that? What's the last piece of that question? What are the most important issues
you feel need adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, I think understanding the right mix of technology. So since COVID and since the smartphone came around in 2007, you guys, your generation, the kids in high school and middle school right now are the guinea pigs for all the technology that's been kind of immersed our world. And we need to figure out, you know, when should we be doing pen and paper, especially in the elementary schools, and how much Chromebook use is the right amount. Going completely Chromebook all the way through the pandemic, I think, made kids and adults completely dependent on technology, and we need to get away from that and more like, how are we doing looking at each other in the eye, talking with each other, social skills, all the things that, you know, COVID kind of put some younger kids back a ways. So we need to kind of figure out the right mix of technology is the short answer on that.
Question 3. How important to you is communication with teachers and students, and how would you ensure that a line of communication remains open throughout the year?
So communication is critical. In my other responses, I think I've brought up communication a couple times already. Without open lines of communication with students and teachers and families, we don't know what's really happening in the schools. All we know is what we have hoped will happen. And so your experience and your learning and the outcomes are what matter most. So that starts with building systems and regular structures like forums and regular opportunities, open office hours, those kinds of things, to hear from the community, to hear from students and educators. And I'm open to your ideas about how we can reach you best. But that's only half the equation. Outreach is one half of communication. We also need to be ready to receive communication. And so I want to talk right now about how you can reach me. I have an email address for my campaign. That's sherryformelrose@gmail.com. That's SHERI. And I also have a phone number that you can text me anytime. It's 781-281-8123. You're welcome to call me too, but I know you probably will not. Teenagers do not call. I don't know who calls anymore, but you are welcome to use that anytime. And what I really hope is that when you have a problem or an idea or a need, that I hear from all of the folks who make up our community, and that we have to build trust and make connections in order to make that happen. So I really hope that communication starts from day one, and that you reach out and we reach out, you speak up for me and other school committee members so that we can shape your high school experience right now.
I joke a lot that my kitchen table at dinner time is like public comment in the school committee meeting, because I have a daughter at the middle school and a daughter in the high school. And so I hear from them all the time about what's happening. So I know the impact of the cuts on our kids in particular, who are now in classrooms of 30 plus, right? So I think it's so important to hear from students. We love it when students come to our school committee meetings and do public comment and tell us what's going on. I'm always happy to talk to people. I'm happy to give out my cell phone number to anyone. Teachers, you know, we do not supervise teachers. It's really the principals that do that, the assistant principals, and in the past it was the curriculum directors. Now we don't have any. So I really want to hear from teachers, and I enjoy talking to teachers, but we can't necessarily reach out to them. They can reach out to us, you know, because we don't want to be seen as like invading the space of the schools, but we're community members too. So it's really great to hear from teachers and from students in particular. We got to know how things are going for students and educators.
Communication is very important. I touched a little bit on this as we've gone along, but I think that the school committee, that's one of the main jobs, is communication, talking to students, parents, administrators, educators, the community, and listening to their ideas, to their opinions, and taking all of that information to make the best decisions possible for our school district. I think we use that input as best as possible, but I also think that that communication is based on building relationships, and my goal will be to continue to build relationships, not just during this campaign, but after, while I'm on the school committee if I get elected, and doing opportunities like this where I can go to student community events, where I can meet new people. Going to, or the school committee does do office hours right now with the community. Of course I would continue to do that. I would have email available, phone number available, and just any opportunity I can get. I want to make sure that I am approachable and accessible, and that community members know that they can reach me, and will always provide information on how they can reach me and when they can reach me.
So for school committee, absolutely 100%. We absolutely need to hear everybody's voice, teachers, students, everyone. That is a no-brainer and an absolute 100%. So how to cultivate that? I know we have formal opportunities where people can come to the school committee and share their opinions. We can invite people to speak, but I don't know that that's getting at people in where they need to be met, right? Like, who always has the time to come to a school committee meeting to do that? We need to get out in the field a little bit more and really find ways of speaking with teachers and students, and cultivate, like, opportunities like this are amazing. Like, this is a great thing to do, getting students involved and really asking the questions that they need to, setting up times to really be listening. Another thing is, I know there are open comments that happen, and I know the structure is that the committee sits and listens. I think we need to take a step back as a committee and ultimately understand that after that, we also need to reach out. And it is not the opportunity at the time to have a dialogue, but we need to encourage a dialogue. So if that means reaching out to the resident that took their time to set up a time to meet with them one-on-one, absolutely. We need to cultivate ways. I don't want that quiet person to be afraid to speak up, because you never know where the best ideas are going to come from.
Question 4. Melrose High School has a lot of opportunities available to their students, including a wide range of AP courses and extracurriculars. Data shows that participation in these opportunities is lower in marginalized groups. How can the school committee help address the gap between opportunity and access within these groups, specifically with English language learners and students of color?
So I think this is not just school committee, but it is a school committee that needs to meet with the administration and the educators that work with the students in these marginalized groups. Multi-language learners, students of color, marginalized groups, their barriers are multifaceted, and so we're talking about scheduling, awareness, exposure, accessibility, transportation, amongst other things, and so we need to identify what the educators and administration see as the current gaps. And then we also need to work with those communities, the students and the families, to see where they're feeling that things are inaccessible. So those are starting points. We also need a budget in order to put in the resources needed to address those gaps and those inaccessibilities. So some of it will be dependent on the override. Unfortunately, if it doesn't pass, we're going to have to get creative and find different ways to do that, which is great, but a budget would help those situations. Questions we need to consider, why are students not joining clubs or sports? Is it that they're getting home too late? Do they not have the transportation? Are they not able to do their homework? Are they not going to sleep if they join these things? And so are we looking at study schedules during the school day, or are we looking at transportation needs? And it's an ongoing conversation that we're always going to have to continue addressing from now until it is determined what the answer is.
So this question, when I read it, my first instinct is to ask, what is the data? I am a data analyst, a healthcare data analyst by work. And there are a lot of times where there's more informed in the data than a summary. And it sounds like in that question that this is a summary of some data set. I have lots of questions about what the details are behind the data to really examine where are the pitfalls, where are the barriers. Like, is this a data set that's just Melrose? Is it all of Massachusetts? Is it a nationwide study? What are we talking about? Because we really need to hone in on the right opportunities, not just an idea. So when I'm thinking about this, I would like to have more conversations to figure this out. I know the current state in our school system for AP and extracurriculars, there's teacher recommendations, there's guidance that is sitting with the students, the student selections, and to some degree parents, right? And even in the best case scenario, somebody could have all of that aligned, still put it on their request, and still not get the class. So what are the barriers? If this is happening more often with marginalized or different groups, need to examine what are the barriers. What is happening in order for that not to occur for them? There's a lot more in that data that I can't give you a specific answer because it just makes me ask a lot of questions. But I think those questions are critical and informative to creating the right strategy to properly address the problem.
This is such a great question, and I'm really eager to dig into it, both here and then once I get onto the school committee. I have spent my career focused on questions of educational equity and opportunity, and I've worked with individuals and groups in marginalized and under-resourced communities to address these very issues. So in my experience, there are two barriers that often limit access to academic and extracurricular paths, especially for marginalized groups. And as you said, Melrose has an incredible array of opportunities, both academic and extracurricular, and so really it is about solving for those barriers. The first barrier I think of as logistical barriers, so things like bus schedules, activity fees, class prerequisites, all of those types of things that are actually getting in the way of people being able to step forward and take the actions they want and participate. And school committee has a really important role to play here because school committee focuses on resources and policy. And so we can remove logistical barriers by allocating those resources and ensuring the policies make room for creative solutions. One example is the multiple pathways to higher level courses that I know is being piloted with the accelerated geometry this year in the high school. A second access barrier is about exposure and information. So schools have to ensure that students and families know that the options exist and how to access them. Language barriers and family experiences, and especially poor district communication, can mean students aren't aware of these prerequisites or sign-ups until it's too late. So once again, it all comes back to communication and really making sure that our communication with everyone in the community, especially those marginalized groups, meets folks where they are so that you know what is available and you can take advantage of those.
So one of the things that's happened over the last 8 years is we've unleveled classes, right? So the freshmen Most of the freshman classes are completely unleveled. So that means everyone has access to the same curriculum, and then no one's getting bumped out by that level system. And I believe also that anyone who wants to do an AP class can now. So it's not like, oh, you have to be selected by your teachers. So those things are really helpful. I think that's good. I also think we have to be extremely open to students really getting good intervention to be at grade level or beyond by the time they're in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Because if you start to get behind in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, it's just harder to get out of that hole. And so that's where we need to do all the interventions. So that's, that's where you strengthen learning. If you have a strong foundation, you're going to fly. If you have a shaky foundation when you're young, it just kind of continues to snowball. So it's really about the strong foundation we set up for kids in the elementary school years and in the middle school to be as socially and emotionally attuned to kids and making middle school fun instead of, like the Hunger Games. So I think it's really, creating safe, supportive environments for kids to learn throughout their years so then they feel confident when they get to the opportunity of AP classes and that to feel like they can do it. And also teaching educators how to really support multi-language learners because they're great kids. They can learn very, 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 very quickly. It's outstanding what people can learn multi-languages, and it's a huge strength to know many languages. So those brain pathways are cooking. It's really about making sure that they have access to grade level work and that they can and they get the support that they need as they're learning.
Question 5. Melrose High School has seen a lot of changes this year, from increased class sizes to a new cell phone policy. What are your thoughts on these changes, and how can the school committee support both students and teachers in these areas?
So I work in a school myself. I work at a small competency high school in Salem, Mass. And what I've seen with cell phones in particular is that it's really, really helpful to have a very tight policy, because then kids socialize more, they study better, they focus more in class, they don't go to the bathroom and hang out in the bathroom for hours with their phones and meet up with people and all that. So it's very, very, very helpful to have a very clear and tight cell phone policy. And then in terms of the increased class size, I think it's terrible. I think it's wrong. I wish that we had passed the override a year ago, and that's why I didn't vote for the budget as it was presented to us, because I felt like, the middle school and the high school were going to get crunched. So I can't wait for an override to pass so we can fund those positions again and bring the class sizes down. I think in terms of understanding the new cell phone policy, to go back to that, is teachers wanted this. The leadership team came to the school committee and said, our teachers are really saying that they need a tighter policy. So we were happy to approve that, because we need to support educators in teaching. And cell phones, while they can be absolutely wonderful, can also be tremendously distracting, especially for kids who have learning issues, who feel it much more, it's like a security blanket. Just want to look at my phone, that's my comfort zone. So I'm pleased that the leadership here and the teachers wanted that change, even though I know from my own kids, they're not really happy about it. But kids adjust very quickly. Kids know when you're doing the right thing, even if you're being kind of like strict, so.
Great question. I addressed class sizes a little bit, and so I am in support of smaller class sizes. I would love to see class sizes prior to this year come back. Again, it will be dependent on the override and if we have the budget to allow more teachers coming back in to allow for smaller class sizes again. But I would like to advocate for that if I get elected, and I think it will be one thing that will be discussed and addressed in the upcoming meetings, depending on what the override is. As for the cell phone policy, I think that I am about to be entering into this conversation with 2 young children at home. With 3rd graders, in a few years, they're going to be asking for cell phones, and they're going to, that's going to be a topic of conversation. I I'm saying this to high schoolers, but also to community members. I am in support of the cell phone policy. I think that cell phones are great. They are a wonderful tool. It's nice that we have them, but cell phones can also be a distraction. And our job when we are at school is to learn and interact. And if they are a distraction that is impacting the classroom, the teachers, and the student who is using the cell phone, then we need a cell phone policy that can be implemented. And I think that's one thing that this administration did. They researched it. It's well researched. It's something that they can implement, and it was well thought out. So I am in favor of the cell phone policy and other policies that limit use of cell phone in school so that the focus can be on learning and interacting with their peers and teachers.
So, okay, so both of these scenarios are directly impacting my children this year. My daughter is in a class that was reduced and only has 2 teachers for her grade. She is in direct contact with that every single day. My role as a mom and as a parent with her is to ask her questions and to get some information from her about what is this feeling like. Are you feeling you're not able to ask the questions? Are you able to ask the question to go to the bathroom? What does the room feel like to you? And engage in the conversation with my daughter so she can inform me of what's happening in the class, so that if I am hearing things that are negative or things that need to be addressed, I can reach out to the teacher and to the principal. So parents have a lot to do with what's happening with that, and they have a lot of ability to address those problems. The school committee can do something very similar, where we know it's not all classrooms, not all classrooms in the elementary school, a lot of classrooms in the high school. Sitting through open house yesterday, this class size is a lot bigger than it used to be. Like, that was a common discussion point with the teachers, and we need to reach out to ask what's happening, what's working, what's not working. Because we need to be able to have direct input to figure out what the right answers should be. When it comes to the cell phone policy, I hear lots of different things from a lot of different students, right? Like, my son's perfectly okay with not having his phone. Some students are complaining, well, I'm not able to listen to music. Maybe we can come up with some solutions to figure that out. Is there an opportunity to allow people in certain circumstances to be able to listen to music? But I think the bigger question that's addressed, that the high school students are figuring out, is what's happening next year. There's a lot of talk that it's going to become more strict and more this and more that. And I think that part, I know we're early, but this is something that needs to be on our radar. How are we communicating what's next? Because it seems like, in general, people approve of this policy. The teachers and a lot of students aren't totally against it.
So this question really is about policy, right? It's about public policy and change. And I'm going to nerd out maybe a little bit on this because my academic background is actually in public policy, which is about using laws and government to make change. And anytime you are making change, you are really thinking about how do you meet most or everyone's needs with a solution. And it's never going to be perfect. So it's really about trying something, learning, adjusting, iterating, and continuing to do that. So we start by understanding what the change means. Each change means for students and teachers. What was the purpose of the policy in the first place? What are we trying to solve? And then what are the unintended consequences? When it comes to the class size change, I think we know that that's a response to the budget crisis. And I think we can agree it's pretty negative. But we also are learning about where the greatest harms are to which groups of students and in which classes. So I would want to know where is class size most important. And I would want to hear from each of you and from teachers about how we think about next year's budget, because we will need to make priorities and trade-offs. When it comes to the cell phone policy, I know that's a response to the emerging brain research about attention and distraction and what schools can do to create the best conditions for learning. And I think it's too soon to know. I think it varies by student and it varies by class how that experience is. But we need to hear from you. And so I think all of that information will continue to inform what's the right balance in limiting technology versus leveraging it in the classroom and how to do that most effectively. So with respect to these and other changes, I just want to continue to be in the conversation to inform where we go from here. So I would encourage everyone to reach out.
The final section is an opportunity for the candidates to provide closing remarks.
Thank you. So as we wrap up, I want to thank you for inviting me here. It's been a pleasure talking with you and sharing a little bit about myself and responding to these questions. So this is the work that brought me into the school committee race, wrestling with real questions and problems and inviting more people in to solve what faces Melrose, both in our schools and in our community. And I think there is so much good that we can celebrate and we can lift up, and it starts with students and families and teachers. And I want to bring that positivity with us into the coming school year, despite the current budget crisis and moment that we are in. So as a former teacher and someone who spent many years in and around schools, this is the work. This is what we do, is we get up every day and we figure out where to go from here. And that is how we invest in our schools, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So before we close, I just want to remind you and anyone else who is watching that if you are 18 or you turn 18 by November 4th, that you can vote in the upcoming election. And civic engagement starts with voting. So I really encourage and implore every high schooler who is 18 to register to vote and exercise that right, because that is yet another way to participate in building what comes next. So even if you're not a voter, I want to hear from you. Please reach out with any thoughts and questions, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you. I just want to say that I love that all of you have this opportunity to learn about video production. You have a wonderful teacher, Mr. DiBenedetto, and I'm very proud to have gotten to work on the school committee. I really hope I have an opportunity again to be reelected, to serve some more, to help us pull out of this tough position that we're in. I think that our students and our educators are incredibly resilient, and so I think this year is going to be okay, just not ideal. And we'll get through it, but we want better for you guys. I went to an excellent high school, public high school, and I just think we shouldn't be acting like Melrose is a poor city when it's a very wealthy city. So I really look forward to the override passing. I'd like to ask you guys to get out there with signs for yes to the override, because I think if you talk and tell your neighbors that your class sizes are now in the 30s, that will make a bigger impact than any person who's been an elected official. Because unfortunately, in the days that we're in, everyone thinks it's all a conspiracy theory, right? We're doing something wrong. I don't think we were actually doing anything wrong. I think we're actually leading pretty well. But in the times that we're in, everyone says, what are they doing with the money? You can see the budget, you can see where the money goes, you can see what we're paying people and where we're spending the money. So I just wish people would be truly informed before they make a decision about yes or no on the override. Because anyone who gets really informed is going to see that it's a very good idea to say yes on this override. And I hope for you guys, even if you're seniors, you'll know, okay, things are going to get better, not worse. So I look forward to the work, and I really thank you for this opportunity.
So again, I appreciate the time and the thoughtful questions. You guys have a great grasp of what seems to be what is critical in the town, looking at, you know, the override and all of these things that are being discussed within the community as a whole. So these questions are very broad and helpful for people to really think about. Ultimately, again, I'm getting back to why I ran is to allow for stability and really getting back into the focus of listening. I really want to be that advocate for those who have been silent, who have been quiet, who haven't felt comfortable in speaking up. I need to be open and allow people to ask any question at any time and figure out what works for the community. The school, yes, it directly affects the kids in our towns and the parents, but it is also reflective of the entire community. The culture of the town, the culture of this, of the way we look at what Melrose is and who they are is informed by so much more. And I think we really need to cultivate those voices so that we can really shape the future properly for our students and for where we're going as a school system.
First of all, thank you to AP Government and the broadcast journalism classes. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. The questions were really interesting and thoughtful, and it's nice to see students engaged in local elections, and some that you will all be voting in, and you are the future leaders, so thank you so much for this opportunity. I was asked recently what my values and my guiding philosophies will be on the school committee, and that's compassion and hard work. I think I believe that I believe in public education. I believe a strong school system builds a strong community, and I believe that teachers should feel valued, and I believe all of these things combined really make a great education, and it makes a great community. And if I'm looking forward to earning people's votes and them getting to know me so that they feel confident in earning my vote, and I will feel very privileged if I have the honor of being elected onto the school committee. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for our school committee candidate program presented by the Melrose High School AP Government and Broadcast Journalism classes.